It's been an abnormally mild fall this year, so usually we have had our first frost by the middle of October, but it has been really nice if you have a garden of annuals, that we've been getting a crop a lot later into the year. But now is definitely the time of year that you want to keep an eye on the weather and see when you're going to have a frost in your area. I know there's already been a frost in Baderville, a few frosts in Baderville, but the rest of us are kind of just waiting for it to get down below 32. So when you know that there is going to be a freeze coming, the first thing you're going to want to do is go out into your garden and either harvest everything that is a frost tender annual, so things like beans, peppers, tomatoes, squash, stuff like that. You're going to want to harvest all of that, or you're going to want to try and protect it. If it's just going to be a little bit below freezing, then you can usually just throw a blanket or some frost cloth over your frost tender annuals, and you can get them to maybe go a little bit longer. I'm probably going to do that with some of our things, as long as we're only going to have like one day of freeze and then it's going to warm up a little bit. If it looks like you've got like a whole week of freeze, it probably doesn't make sense to be going out and trying to protect your plants unless you have something that's really close to producing and you just want to give it another week or so before you harvest. If you have things that are outside that are potted, this is the time of year you don't really need to worry about them yet. They're going to die back, but you're going to need to start making a plan for moving them into an area where they're not going to be experiencing a lot of freeze and thaw. So somewhere that stays cool when it's cool, which is a little counterintuitive. Most people want to put them somewhere where it's like warmer, but what happens is, since it's in a pot, the root system is going to experience a lot of heat and then like rapid cooling, and that's really hard on the plant, and sometimes they won't overwinter if you do that. You can also dig a hole in the ground and set your pot down in the ground is another way to protect it, or just put something insulative around the outside of the pot. You're also going to want to go ahead and drain all your hoses once we start getting freezes. Unhook any irrigation systems that you have set up. A lot of people will have companies that'll come and blow out their irrigation systems, but if you're doing it yourself, you'll probably need an air compressor. Go ahead and blow out your irrigation system. That'll just keep it from freezing and cracking. You don't want holes in it, and then same with the hoses. You don't want them to have frozen water in them because it expands and it damages the hoses, and they're expensive, so you don't want to have to buy new ones all the time. So now it's actually just getting to the time that I start planting things, and I get a lot of questions about, like, can you still plant things this time of year, or do I need to protect things that are in the ground already? Now is a great time to plant. You're going to have to water a lot less than if you planted during the spring and summer. The nurseries in town are going to start having their sales pretty soon. Usually November is when they have their best sales, and I plant things in November as long as the ground isn't frozen, and it works really well for me as somebody who's kind of a lazy waterer. Just make sure that you're choosing things that are at least zone 5 hardy, so probably hardy down to about -30 degrees, and it should say it on the tag of the plant. If it doesn't, then you can usually do a quick Google search and it'll tell you. Just look up USDA hardiness zone, whatever the plant it is that you're looking at. Usually once it gets later into the year, you'll want to stick with things that are larger container plants, so probably like gallon size and above, and you're going to start wanting to lean more towards like shrubs and trees. If you're from somewhere like California or Phoenix, somewhere where you don't experience hard freezes on a regular basis, or a winter season really, I know that it's difficult to watch your plants lose their leaves and look like they're dead, but it is actually for pretty much all of the plants that'll live in this area, they need that rest over the winter. So think about it as like a hibernation period, and then usually they'll come back stronger and healthier in the spring. So you don't want to bring them in, you don't want to dig them up and bring them inside and try and encourage them to continue pretending that it's summertime. You're going to want to let them go to sleep. once they've died back all the way, for things that are not woody, you're going to want to go ahead and just trim the dead material off, and you can either use that to mulch around them or you can compost it. For things that are like woody plants, that's going to be, once they lose their leaves, that's going to be the time of year that you're going to want to go ahead and prune them, which I do have some pruning videos as well. You're going to want to do that about once every 3 years. I know people who do like light pruning every year, but if you're going to try and like reinvigorate plants that don't look very good, then usually you'll want to do that once every 3 years. So for anything that you have that's kind of borderline for this area, so like butterfly bushes come to mind, some rose bushes, you're going to want to put like 3 or 4 inches of mulch around the base of the plant to keep the root systems a little bit warmer, and that'll make it so that they overwinter a little bit better. And you do need to remember that when spring comes, you're going to want to pull that mulch away from the base of the plants. But for anything that is appropriate for your zone, you don't have to do anything to it.